Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are setting off on an absolutely fascinating journey where ancient legend collides head-on with modern scientific metrics. We're going to unpack the story of Krishna's Dwarka and rising sea levels, essentially looking at how this event serves as an ancient witness to global warming. We'll be asking a really profound question. Are our ancient texts actually the oldest, most accurate records of devastating planetary climate shifts? Get ready, because this explainer is going to completely change how you view human history. Let's dive right in. It's a question that has puzzled people for centuries. Is the sinking of Dwarka just a story? So many of us grew up with the grand tales of the Mahabharata, and we're totally familiar with the lore of the ocean just swallowing up this magnificent golden city. But as a critical thinker, you really have to wonder, was this merely poetic myth, or was it an actual recorded historical event? Today, we're going to unpack the very real difference between imaginative myth-making and actual historical record-keeping. All right, Part 1, The Mystery of Dwarka. When we look closely at the ancient texts, they actually provide a remarkably precise timeline. They explicitly state that exactly 36 years after the devastating Mahabharata war, Krishna's magnificent city of Dwarka was swallowed entirely by the ocean. Notice the specific detail there. The text doesn't say once upon a time or in an age-long past. It gives a strict chronological anchor, exactly 36 years later. That level of mathematical specificity, that's our first major clue that we might be dealing with something far more rigid than mere folklore. Moving on to Part 2, Poetry or Authentic History. So there's been this massive clash in how these texts have been viewed over the centuries. During the colonial era, Western scholars often just dismissed these accounts as mere poetry, exaggerated myth, or imaginative fiction. It perfectly fit a certain narrative to view these ancient documents as purely allegorical. But the traditional indigenous perspective is entirely different. It views these texts as Itihaas, which translates closer to thus it happened. From this viewpoint, we aren't reading fairy tales. We are reading factual case studies based on real-world, chronological events. So what exactly is Itihaas? Well, it's not just a direct translation of the English word history. It's actually a highly practical survival-oriented tool. Think of it like a massive ancient encyclopedia of factual case studies. Its primary purpose was to teach future generations profound life lessons, guiding them through the core principles of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, which represent righteousness, wealth, desire, and liberation. By meticulously recording real historical crises, these texts basically acted as a massive survival guidebook for human civilization. Which brings us to Part 3, the scientific perspective and evidence. Now, to really understand if this ancient guidebook holds up today, we have to step out of the text for a second and into the realm of hard science. Prominent researcher Niles Oak approached this whole thing not with emotional belief, but by rigorously applying philosopher Karl Popper's logic of scientific method. Basically, this means establishing a theory based on the text, gathering hard empirical evidence, and presenting it in a way that is falsifiable. If the data doesn't match the ancient claim, the claim falls apart. It is quite literally the absolute gold standard for scientific investigation. And the researchers didn't just analyze translated verses, they used modern scientific disciplines to put these ancient claims to the ultimate test. We're talking about geology, oceanography, climatology, and sedimentology acting as our primary detective tools here. By analyzing rock formations, deep sea cores, and ancient weather patterns, these scientific fields dig into the Earth's layers to find hard empirical evidence. They are completely independent of the ancient text, which means their findings provide an unbiased reality check on what actually happened to our planet. Now for the data. Part 4, 5525 BCE, Rising Sea Levels. Let's trace the exact chronological sequence derived from our sources. Based on super precise astronomical observations recorded in the texts, things like specific planetary positions and celestial alignments, the Mahabharata war is dated to 5561 BCE. Now, remember that specific clue we discussed earlier? The text explicitly states that a catastrophic event occurred exactly 36 years after the war. Doing the simple math, if we subtract 36 from 5561, boom, we land directly on the year 5525 BCE. This is the exact year the texts claim a sudden dramatic sea level rise swallowed the city. 5525 BCE. I really want you to pause for a second and let the weight of that specific date sink in. We aren't dealing with a vague reference to a misty mythological era that can't be proven or disproven. This is a highly specific, mathematically derived point in human history. By pinning down an exact year, The ancient texts are essentially issuing a massive, direct challenge to modern science. They're saying, look at this precise moment in time and see if the Earth agrees. And when modern science did look at that exact time period, the scale of what they found was absolutely staggering. 23 meters. Scientific data reveals that during this specific mid-6th millennium BCE timeframe, there was a sudden, massive spike in global sea levels of up to 23 meters. Just picture that for a second. Imagine a wall of water as high as a 7- or 8-story building suddenly rising up along coastlines worldwide. For a coastal, prosperous city like Dwarka, it wouldn't just be a flood. It would be an absolute, unmitigated global cataclysm. And here is the absolute kicker. The most compelling piece of evidence comes from over 30 independent global scientific studies. The incredible thing here is that these oceanographers and climatologists weren't out searching for Krishna's Dwarka, not at all. They were just mapping the history of our planet's oceans. Yet their data independently and irrefutably confirms that a sudden, massive sea level rise occurred right in the mid-6th millennium BCE. The hard data from modern global climate science aligns perfectly with the timeline recorded in the Mahabharata. It is just a stunning convergence of ancient text and modern metrics. This leads us to our final takeaway, Part 5, An Ancient Witness to Climate Change. When we put all these pieces together, it profoundly shifts our understanding of human history. We really can no longer view the Mahabharata simply as an epic war story or just a philosophical treatise. It acts as an ancient, thoroughly documented witness to sudden, catastrophic global warming. It is literally a real-time record of how humanity experienced and survived severe planetary climate shifts. And this perfectly validates the true purpose of Itihaas. It's a meticulously preserved memory of human resilience in the face of planetary-scale disaster. So, I want to leave you with this final, profound thought to chew on. If our ancient texts could meticulously record catastrophic climate change, planetary shifts, and immense sea level rises thousands of years ago, what else can they teach us about navigating our future? What other ancient wisdom about human survival, adaptation, and resilience is just waiting to be uncovered right beneath the surface of what we used to call myth? Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and stay curious. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.